Our scripture lesson for this evening, I chose from Exodus, and you'll see why in just a second. So let us hear the word of our Lord. Exodus chapter 22, verses 21 through 27. You shall not wrong or oppress a resident alien, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. You shall not abuse any widow or orphan. If you do abuse them, when they cry out to me, I will surely heed their cry. My wrath will burn, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall become widows and your children orphans. If you lend money to my people, to the poor among you, you shall not deal with them as a creditor. You shall not exact interest from them. You should take your neighbor's cloak in pawn. You shall restore it before the sun goes down. For it may be your neighbor's only clothing to use as cover. In what else shall that person sleep? And if your neighbor cries out to me, I will listen, for I am compassionate. Blessed are those who hear the word of the Lord and believe. At this time, I'll ask Marcia to give us the presentation on the resources available to the vulnerable here in the Lehigh Valley and how they provide resources for all of us that we can share then with others. Marcia.
There you go. All righty. Okay, so I'm Marcia Eichelberger. I'm the director at the 6th Street Shelter. And the 6th Street Shelter is located 219 North 6th Street in Allentown. And it's a homeless shelter for families. But one of the things I'm going to talk about is Community Action Committee of the Lehigh Valley in whole. And so the 6th Street Shelter is one of the programs of Community Action. And we'll spend a little bit of time talking about all the different programs that we have. And if you have any questions, just ask. I mean, it's informal. I can stop and still start. Though you may find out I might be one of those presentations that you don't want to record because you don't want anybody to hear it later. I don't know. As you said, the good ones, so I'm not sure. Maybe just do them and delete. But anyway, I will figure this out. Yes, okay. I'm, like I said, the director of the 6th Street Shelter. Community Action has been around for almost 50 years, a little bit over 45 years. And there are about 1,100 community action agencies all throughout the United States. They were born when Lyndon Johnson declared his war on poverty, and the community action agencies were part of the Economic Opportunity Act. And what happened was, there's a lot of poverty back then, still is, but the thought was that the best way to deal with poverty was on a local level. So it was a way of having local control and local decision-making by the people in the local communities. Because the poverty issues in the Lehigh Valley are not the same as the poverty issues in San Francisco. They're not the same as in Arizona. I mean, you know, a drought might be something that Arizona struggles with more than we do. And so by giving federal money through local community action agencies, they felt that that was the best way to distribute the money and have the local problems dealt with, you know, on a local basis. So that's what we are. That's what we are. We do all sorts of things for low-income people. Our main funding source is Community Service Block Grant money, which is federal money that comes through the state. Though the Community Action Committee is about a $16 million agency that has, let's see. No, so that's not right. I'm losing my mind, I think. Actually, I think it's a $6 million agency. I put a little one in front of that. And we do all sorts of things. So all the money that we get is not from the government. We get some money from the government, but we also do fundraising. We do all sorts of things to bring local dollars in. The federal government money is used to leverage other dollars and other support. All right, so that's our mission. And one of the things that I think we take pride in is that the mission is really about empowering people. The Community Action Agency and all the programs are not about telling people what to do. It's about giving them a voice in the communities, and it's about helping them achieve self-sufficiency through all sorts of different programs. And so one of the other unique things about community action agencies is that our boards are made up of people, public, private, but also low-income people. So there's low-income people who serve on our board or people who represent the low-income community. So sometimes Like the Northampton Community College has a New Options, New Choices program and a KEYS program that help low-income students that are going back to school. So if they can get students from the school to serve on it, they do. But if they can't, then they have people who work with those students and have a real understanding of the needs of the people in the low-income community. Pointing here, yes. Okay, that works. All right, so Community Action Committee has all these programs. Tons of programs. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time. I have one slide on each until, of course, you get to my program, which has many slides. All right. So we have 2 Community Action Development Corporations. And this one is in Allentown, and the other one is in Bethlehem. And I don't know if you've driven down 7th Street recently, if you're going into Allentown, they've done a lot of work down there. There's been a lot of facade work. There's businesses that are starting. And so one of the things that this program does is they do start your own business programs. They do, it's like a 45-week program, and you pay something for it, but if you graduate, you get your money back. So if you complete the program, and they have all sorts of people that come in. They have people that come in that talk to you about insurance. You have to do a work plan. They do a market analysis. They talk about all the different things. I want to start a business. Well, it's not so easy. There's a lot of different things that go into starting a business. And so they're helping people in the downtown, low-income people who want to start a business. And so on 7th Street, Happy Garden, it's right around the corner from where we are. They're a Chinese restaurant. We order from them a lot. They have hair, they have barber shops, they have all sorts of programs that they have worked with and have helped the owners start these businesses, and then they continue as the business grows to help them. Sometimes you need help with technical support. Sometimes you need help with trying to figure out how you can apply for a loan or a grant. So once you've graduated from that program, they're there for you to provide all the assistance that you need to try to help you be successful in the business. Because one of the things that we feel very strongly about is, there's lots of human service programs. 6th Street Shelter is one of them. And, what kind of business do they start? Nope. No, it doesn't. And it doesn't have to, you don't have to open the business in Allentown. That they have one in Allentown and they have one in Bethlehem. But it doesn't matter. You go in, you learn about all the things that are involved with starting a business, and then in order to graduate and move on to the next level, which is, there's sometimes financing available because we have another program which is called the Rising Tide. And but in order to be able to qualify for that, you have to do a business plan, and you have to do a market analysis because they're not going to help provide funding if you want to start a business that there's 500 other ones and that your bottom dollar is never going to make it because of your overhead and things like that. So they really help you analyze the things that you want to do. Okay, and that would certainly, they start the Start Your Own Business classes, I think, twice or 3 times a year. I can give you, if I can get your number at the end, I can give you the contact information and put you in touch with the person who does that. Okay, so, well, there's lots of things that are going on, and so maybe you're attending the classes right now just to learn that maybe you need to spend a little bit more time in school, or maybe you're ready. Maybe there's a real need for that. And I don't know those things, but the people there are really good about analyzing the need and your costs and how much money you can expect to make and all those sort of things that really become important if you're going to have a successful business. My program is the 6th Street Shelter. It's homeless people. There probably aren't any more lazy people than homeless people because they can't even keep a house. So, and that is not the case. We work with families with children. And so we'll skip a little forward. 6th Street Shelter is a shelter for families with children. That is the only population we serve. So in order to come into the shelter, you have to have children under the age of 18 living with you. We have 20 apartments. Typically, we serve 110 families a year, and right now we have 75 families on our waiting list to get into the shelter. Do those families, I don't know. I don't know if any of us ever are born or wake up or graduate from high school and say, hey, my goal is to become homeless. My goal is not to be able to provide for my children. That's what I want to do. I want to live on $306 a month, which is what welfare gives you. Mom and children, that's the cash assistance that you receive if you have one child with you. It's not a lot of money. It's not enough to live on. The families that we serve and come through the shelter have stories like all of us do. Most of them are single female head of households. lot of times they've been in a relationship that has been with domestic violence. A lot of time they're in a relationship that the relationship breaks up. So they were making it. Dad and mom, whether they were married or not married, they had 1, 2. I mean, our family are typically 2.5 children. That is not different than you and I. I mean, I have 3 girls, so I have more children than most of the people that come through our shelter. But what I do have, and they don't, is a support system and an education. And I have people that were there when things got tough. And a lot of the families that we serve don't have an education. Some of them had to drop out of high school. A lot of them do it in early pregnancy. I mean, that is truly one of the things that we really struggle with is we do a shelter census. So every year, all the shelters in the Lehigh Valley answer all these questions about, where were you the night before? Where have you ever lived? At what age did you first have your child? And the younger, 15, 16, 17, the chances of finishing high school and, being able to be self-sufficient really decreases as you have a child earlier. So, no, I mean, the families we have want to work. A lot of them don't have the education. They don't have the soft skills. When we have 20 families in the shelter, I typically have one family that has a car. And as you were saying, you look at the clinic. I mean, you see what it is to ride the bus system here in the Lehigh Valley. I mean, I had a fellow who lives at the shelter, and he had a car. The clutch went. Well, there was no way he could afford to have his clutch. But I do believe in divine intervention. That very same day, we got an email from somebody who wanted to donate a car. That doesn't happen very often, but it did. So we worked it out. But in order for him to, he needed to rent a car because he worked and he goes to school. He's going to finish up his degree at LTRIC, and he works over at the Sands. But he still, things happened. He couldn't afford his rent. He got behind. And so we had to work out how he could get from the shelter to his bank, which is PNC up here somewhere near the mall. And then from the mall, he wanted to get to the car rental place so that he could rent a car, and we helped him with that for 3 days because it was finals week. And so it took him, I wanted to drive him. I thought, oh, this is just ridiculous. It took like 2.5 hours for him to get from Allentown to here, and then he had to wait to get on the next bus to go to the car rental place at the airport. That's not somebody he's working a lot harder than I am. I'm getting in a car, and I can drive and make my deposit at the bank and then go rent a car. I mean, I had a credit card that I could do that, and he didn't. All he had was a debit card. And so in order for him to rent the car, he had to have cash, $500 in his bank account so that he would be able to, they debit your card until you get back. So it is a complex and interesting life for people who have no money. The thought that they don't want to work, the thought that they don't want to get a job, isn't true. There's lots of barriers. And one of the things that we, as a 6th Street Shelter and as an agency, try to do is eliminate some of those barriers. And we can't do it all. I mean, I don't have people calling me every day that say, here, there's a car to donate, or, that here's a washer and dryer, or here's $500,000 to expand your shelter. It doesn't happen. But we work with the families that are in the shelter and help them to become self-sufficient. That's our goal. It's about teaching people to fish. It's not about feeding them. And, we do that, every day with families. When you come into the shelter, it's a pretty strict program. I mean, it's a great program. We have 20 apartments, and we have apartments that are the nicest apartments that most of the families have ever lived in. But we don't wake you up. We'll give you an alarm clock, but we're not going to call you and say it's time to get up. We don't find you jobs. Here's the morning call. Here's a family resource center with computers. Here's how you do an internet search. But we're not finding your jobs. We're not getting you jobs. We're not going to do your resume for you. We are about helping people become self-sufficient. Because if you're in the shelter and we do all those things for you, we haven't helped you. We haven't taught you anything, because you're going to go out and have to do those things on your own. And one of the things I think, I struggle with, and, I think as a society we should be struggling with, is the whole issue of poverty. The playing field is not even. The people that are, living in Allentown, in some of the neighborhoods, their kids don't have the same schools that some of the kids in the suburbs do. I'm sorry, you go to Parkland or go to East Penn or some of the other schools, you've got a better chance of being successful. You're getting a better education. The Allentown School District, has like 50 or 60% of the kids. When I was growing up, this was the class. There were 25 of us, and when we left at the end of the year and started the next year, there were probably 1 or 2 kids that came in and 1 or 2 kids that left. But in Allentown, 40 to 50 to 70%, depending on the class, the kids that are there at the beginning of the year aren't there at the end of the year. It's a whole new group of kids that come in because of people moving around. And so there's lots of issues that I think that we don't recognize, just because they're not things that we know about. I mean, I've been at the shelter as director for almost 10 years, and I thought I was pretty, I believed in social justice before that, but I didn't really know what it meant. And so, one of the things I hope tonight is that you'll learn a little bit more about some of the families that we serve and some of the programs that we do. So I've completely lost where we are, but we'll go on. But it isn't, no, it's very important. Yeah. Right, these are people, right. They are looking, they want a life just like you and I do. They would like for their children and their grandchildren a life that's better than they have. And a lot of the families that we are serving have generation of poverty. They don't know different things than having always been poor, having to work, and not having the skills that they need. But they're trying. And I will tell you, over the course of the last year and a half, the population of people who are utilizing the services, not only at the shelter, but the food banks and things like that, are people that never thought that they would be utilizing shelter services or any human services. We've had people I had a woman who called me today. She's been in her home for 18 years, but she lost her job, and she's homeless with her 3 children. And so that's a little bit different. 10 years ago, or even 4 or 5 years ago, it was really people that had lots of, some of them mental health issues, some of them, poverty, not poverty, but some of them like domestic violence. But now we're having people that just, have maxed out of their unemployment, they saved some money, but they haven't been able to make it. And part of that, I would think, is the economy. I mean, we all thought it was going to recover better than it did, and it hasn't. And, really for people on the fringes and on the margins, this has been a really long time that they've been trying to hold on, and it's some of them have reached the point of being hopeless about that, and that's not a good place to be. All right, so there's, let me see if I remember the button. Okay, so we have the same thing in Bethlehem. We do a lot of great things. I mean, the Community Action Development Corporations, they do fun things. I mean, they do facade work. They also, the skate park. I don't know if any of you on the south side of Bethlehem, there's a skate park. We were part of that. There's what they call the Southside Vision 2014, and there's been thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been invested on the south side. It's huge. I mean, it's a great skate park. Yeah, it is, and so we were, and part of that was, helping to bring in the money for that. I mean, we didn't build the skate park, but it was about, the partnerships with like Wachovia and some of those things to help bring in the money and help design that. So again, we have that in Allentown, one in Bethlehem, and there. Oh, well, let me go back to this one, because this is a good one. Community Action Financial Services. That's a program that helps people avoid foreclosure, and it also does a lot of different things. Right now, they're doing a lot of foreclosure mitigation. I mean, that's a big thing right now. One of the things that we were able to work out with Lehigh and Northampton County is, you know what it is when something like this happens, we sort of put our heads in the sand. And so a lot of people that are facing foreclosure just become inactive. They put their head in the sand and think it's going to go away. And it doesn't. And then finally at the last minute they say, hey, maybe I can do something. So one of the things that we worked out with both Lehigh and Northampton County is that the mortgage companies that are foreclosing on homes have to get around the table with the homeowner, if they're interested, and try to work out a loan modification. It's a requirement if the homeowner is interested in doing that. And we've been very successful at trying to help, having people have loan modifications and be able to stay in their homes. The other thing we do is free income tax preparation. That's a great program. You know, if you go to have your income tax done at, you know, I don't want to name any of them, but you know some of them, you charge an arm and a leg, and then they'll give you the money back, I don't know, in 3 days when you're going to get it back in 6, but they're going to charge you $300 to do that. So we do it for free. And over time, it's all done electronically, so you get it back really quickly. And, you know, one of the things is a lot of low-income people don't have access to banking, you know, for lots of different reasons. One, they're scared of it, or two, they had some experience with banking and they didn't handle it very well. So, you know, there's lots of different reasons. So we've been able to come up with like a debit card that the money can go back onto that, and then they're able to have their money, you know, really quickly. So that is another great program for people. And also, they've always done the right stuff about renting. You know, I don't know. One of the things I think I've taught my children is, you know, you rent an apartment. Whenever you pay money to somebody, it's better to do it in a check. And if you don't do it in a check, make sure you get a receipt for it. You know, if somebody has an agreement with you and it's a lease, and they say these are the terms of the lease, you want that written down. You know, and if they say, oh, well, you don't have to worry, you're not going to pay the electric bill, or you're going to pay half the electric bill. You know, some of the folks that we're dealing with just aren't as savvy as, you know, they didn't have somebody to teach them those things. And so they end up, you know, sometimes moving into an apartment that, one, is maybe not really in that great a shape. You know, and if you live in the city of Allentown and have an apartment there, the landlord is supposed to have that place licensed. And a lot of times they don't, because maybe it was a single-family home that, you know, they weren't living in anymore, so they turn it into 2 apartments, which really, you know, maybe doesn't have 2 electric meters. So there's lots of different things that they really help people that don't have an understanding of what you're supposed to do. You know, what do you do when what should you be doing if you're a good tenant? And what should you be doing to make sure that you're protecting yourself? And so they do that whole program on that. All right, so energy partnership, we do a lot of this, LIHEAP, weatherization, a lot of things to help not only help people pay their electric bill, but help them keep the costs and weatherize their home so that they can keep the cost of electricity down and their heat down. We do a lot of work with this with senior citizens, low-income senior citizens. I mean, that's huge. They want to stay in their home, but it's getting more and more expensive. Their houses are getting a little bit older. You know, they don't really have the money to maintain it. And that water heater or the boiler is 25 years old. And it's just sort of costing them too much money. So we really try to do things like insulating and putting in new boilers and things like that to help keep the costs of their energy costs down. Land trust. Now, I don't know. I've always struggled with this one because I'm not really sure what it is, but I have an idea. I mean, basically, we buy homes and we fix them up, and then we sell them, but we keep the land. Now, this is about, by doing that, we keep the cost of the property down. And so when you go to sell that home, you get the profits from it, but the land remains in the land trust name, so that is always a cost that helps keep this to be an affordable house. That's the very simple thing that I can know about this. It's much more complex. The counties own the land. There's a lot of money that goes into it. And one of the great things about this program is that it keeps the cost of the program, the houses down for the future, not just now. And it also means that we have low-income families not in the public, not in public housing, but scattered, which is, what we want, what I think we should want. I mean, we want mixed, diverse communities, and that's one of the ways that you can do that, by having some of these houses, not just, at Overlook Park or not just here. They are really sort of, a mixed community. So we do that. One of the newer programs that we do. Rising Tide, again, this is a pretty great program. It is we lend money to people, businesses and things like businesses, basically for capital. And these are some of the programs that we've Daily Grind. Is that up here? Yeah. Okay. So those were all programs that some of them went through the Start Your Own Business program. They all had to qualify for the loan. The problem is that a lot of times, if you're new in business or maybe had some issues years ago, you can't get conventional financing through a bank. And so they do that, and they have a great success rate. They've had people that have invested money into that, and it's been a great program. And I think recently they've upped the amount of loans that they can provide to that. But, the companies pay them back, and then the money gets reinvested in the neighborhood. but it really helps businesses who otherwise couldn't get, a conventional loan. All right, Second Harvest. Everybody knows this one. Say, everybody but you all. Everybody always shakes their head at Second Harvest. Food pantry, if you're not also looking for donations and support from the community. Right, and that's great. But Second Harvest is one of, it's huge, 170 agencies. There's 170 food pantries. But just so you know, you don't send people to Second Harvest for food. It is a food warehouse bank. You all know that. All right, but anyway, Second Harvest is a community action program, so you all know about that one. And West Ward is, again, it's in Easton. It's another community action neighborhood partnership that does different things. We've done an urban ecology project with Lafayette College. They're doing gardens. They're just doing a whole bunch of things to revitalize West Ward, which is the low-income area in Easton. All righty. Work Ready, which is, again, programs trying to help people get ready for work. Because, and I don't mean ready, get dressed, but be prepared for work. Because it's not just about having the hard skills. Maybe you're great at the computer. Maybe you can do all the things that you need to do for your job. But if you allow things, if you don't have plan B, C, and D, and your car breaks down, or your child care for some reason doesn't work for a week, if you're not going to be able to keep a job if you don't have some of those things, some of the soft skills that you need in order to be a good employee. So that's one of the things. They work with them with skills, but they also work with them to sort of let them understand that when you're somebody who's working for somebody and you're being counted on, you have to really make an effort to get to work. And so, if you have a small child and child care is an issue, you need to have a backup plan before that happens. And so they really help them with not only the work skills, but some of the soft skills. All right, then this is me. All right, so this is, this is now I'm no longer stumbling through all the programs. The 6th Street Shelter has been around since 1984. We are the only shelter in the Lehigh Valley that takes intact families. We have individual apartments for families. Intact, whatever. So whatever your family, you have mom with your children, you have grandma, mom, and children, you have dad with his children, you have mom and dad with your children, you have mom and mom with your children, or dad and dad. Whatever your family composition is, you can come to our shelter as long as you have children and as long as you're low income. That's the requirement for coming into our program. And because most shelters are dormitory style, men and older boys cannot be with the women. 7th and Gordon. Okay. No. They take women and children. No men. No men. Rescue Mission takes men, and Salvation Army only takes boys up to like the age of 14. So they don't have apartments, they have rooms, but no, and they can't. They're an emergency shelter, and they are an emergency shelter for families with children and women and children only. So if you go there, you have to split up. Dad has to go to the Rescue Mission, and mom and her kids can go. Yes, there's a couple different programs, but we're the only shelter. Like there's some transitional housing units, which you can stay for a little bit longer, but we're the only shelter that can keep families intact. Well, you know what? So occasionally we do. Prepared food is always a challenge. We don't have, because we have apartments, each family makes their own meals. But occasionally we've had walk-a-thons or a picnic, so they bring in some leftover food. That we try to divvy up and give the families. Yeah, or the Rescue Mission, because they...
Well, it wasn't the Red Line, because they were kids.
Okay.
We gave them chocolate milk, we gave them
Yeah. Well, because milk products, even, that's never anything that you're going to get it, through Second Harvest. And we have an emergency food pantry where we can help out, but that's not a core program of ours. And so anyway, I'm going to show you some pictures. I went the wrong way. I won't show you that picture. All right, so that is, you wouldn't know. I mean, you're driving down 6th Street. That is the shelter, those 3 buildings. I mean, and one of the things that we really do try to take into consideration is, are we good neighbors? I mean, this is a much better look on a street than some sort of institutional building that says, oh, shelter, shelter, shelter. Nobody knows we're there. Nobody knows. I mean, we don't hide. I mean, we're not Turning Point, so we are not a place that needs to hide. But all those doors you can get in, but you need to be buzzed in. We do take the safety of our residents very seriously. And so we have, people have keys, the families have keys to their door and their apartment, but they don't have keys to our front door. We have a system where we buzz folks in and out all day long. And in the evening, we have a caretaker there because we want them to be safe. Some people are at the shelter because of a domestic violence issue. Some people aren't. But the 6th Street Shelter is a really pretty strict program. We are that tough parent that nobody likes. And I'm going to tell you, our residents, a lot of them, there's lots of things about the shelter that they like, but there's a lot of them that they don't. We have a 9 o'clock curfew. You have to, unless you're working, you need to be in your apartment at 9 o'clock. We do curfew checks. We make sure everybody's in their apartment. We do weekly apartment inspections. It's not my mother's white glove, but it has to be clean. I mean, our job is to help people learn what they need to do to become self-sufficient and independent. And you have children. You're at our shelter. You need to be in by 9 o'clock. If you're not, if you want us to recommend you to a landlord, we have to be able to tell the landlord that you know how to keep your apartment. And if you didn't know how to keep it when you moved in because you didn't have those skills, by the time you leave, you better have them. Because, you're not going to be able to be a tenant who stays in an apartment if you never take your garbage out, if you leave your stinky diapers there, or, you're making loud noises, or just not being a good tenant. And so that is one of the things that's really important to us, is that we make sure that the families, know what we expect of them. We have an intake packet that's about, 20 pages long. We don't allow drugs. We don't allow alcohol. There's no visitors. The family that you came in with are the only people that are allowed in your apartment. You need to meet with your caseworker. You need to save 50% of your income, whatever your income is, whether it's from work, unemployment, child care, child support, TANF, whatever it is. Whenever you get paid, we expect you to come into the office and put 50% of it into your savings. There's a $10 shelter fee, but we can waive that if you can't afford it. But basically, if you can't save when you're paying $10 a week, you are not going to make it tomorrow. But you need to find a plan. If you decide you're not going to make your deposits, if you decide that you're going to be out till 10 o'clock in the evening, or you decide, you're going to have alcohol in the building, or you're going to smoke in the building, we're going to ask you to leave. There are 70 families that are waiting to come into our program, and you need to want this program. You need to want to be successful, and you have to be self-sufficient. Because if you're not, then, we can't help you. We can't do more than what you're doing. Yes. The GED program, though, again, funding was an issue. It cost us a lot of money. So now we have the same teacher who comes in once a week and does GED for the residents. We also used to have an after-school program. We now have what we call Family Resource Center. We found out that what we need to do is make sure that there is internet and there is access to those things for the people that are living at the shelter. Because if you're looking for a job, trying to communicate, email, and all those things, you can't fill an application out anymore unless you have, internet. So, all right, so that's us. That is, one of the things we're doing is we're expanding. You have a waiting list like that. That's what we call the dump. That is the building right next to us. And so it went for sale, and we just, one of the things about a shelter program is it has to be secure. So we can't add additional shelter 2 blocks down. It has to be right next to us because we have to buzz people in, we have camera systems, and we have a caretaker. And the most inexpensive way to do that is have one caretaker for all the programs. So we bought this building. I'll show you what it's going to look like. That's what it's going to look like. So those are the other 2 shelter buildings, and when we have one more. We plan to demolish the building in 2013. We're going to do a blitz. We're working with Habitat. We've partnered with Habitat. And we're also looking to partner with another organization in Allentown, HADC, which employs low-income people in doing the construction work. And it's a, $810,000 project. We've raised $740,000 of it, so we're in pretty good shape. They had a challenge grant. One of their members offered a certain amount of money it was 4 to 1. So the goal was that they were going to raise $100,000. They did. They did it in a month. I don't know. It was just pretty darn amazing, if you ask me. Yeah, they can. But the goal was about the money, but the goal was also about engaging the families. And that was really why we partnered with Habitat. There are a lot of people at First Pres that can give that kind of money, and that is great. But there are a lot of people that can't give that kind of money. So how do you engage those people? How do you make them feel part of this project? And how we did was Habitat. I mean, basically, Habitat is going to bring all these folks in as volunteers. And the church has really gotten involved with this. They have sewers and knitters and all these things. So the quilters are quilting, we figured 25 beds in the new building. So they're quilting 25 quilts. You know, that's their goal, is to make sure that every one of the beds has one of their quilts on it. Something. Oh, sure, yeah, because it's not just going to be them. They're going to be the Blitz Week, but yes. I mean, you'll be able to go onto the Habitat website if you've already volunteered. You know there's some sort of process that you have to have. But yeah, and there's lots of things. And that's one of the things, you know, you only gave me, how long did you give me? Because I told you. All right.
You have about 5 minutes.
Okay. I'm 5 minutes over. Whatever. All right. So anyway, you know, this is the back of the shelter. We have a pretty nice playground there. You know, that's on our shelter property. I'm pretty proud of that. You know, Just Born about 15 years ago partnered with the shelter, and they provided a lot of the materials and labor, and then. So the shelter, it used to be it went straight across that building, and you can see now it sort of punches out there a little bit. That was an Eagle Scout project. He expanded it because it was a great area, but there wasn't enough play area. So we thought, okay, what can we do? So he got volunteers, made the fence bigger, added those things, and it is just really a very nice area for the families. It's just, I mean, being in town, it's great. Last year, 2 years ago, we renovated. You know, the 219 building's been around forever. We renovated, the day we got done and we had the open house is when we announced the other one. So I don't know. Alan doesn't let us rest here. But we renovated the 219 building. It was, it was a nice building, but it was 25 years old. It had seen its day. And so these are the apartments in them. As you see, they're pretty nice. They all have bunk beds, but they're nice apartments. And we decided solar. I'm proud of that. I mean, we did solar on our 219 building. Come down 6th Street, you can see it. It's great. It's thermal solar, so it's a really great system, and it gives us all our hot water. So, in addition to the shelter program, I have 2 other programs that are part of the 6th Street Shelter. And again, we do a lot of things right. Name creativity isn't there. You know, 6th Street Shelter, Turner Street Apartments, located Turner Street, Allentown. Ferry Street Apartments, located Ferry Street in Easton. All right, those programs are similar to the 6th Street Shelter program in that they only serve families with children, but those are 2-year programs that require education. So if you get accepted into that program, you have to spend the entire time you're in that program not only being a parent, not only being low income, but you have to be in school. And this, I'm going to tell you, the shelter is a great program, but this is my shining star. I have families in this program that started out, with nothing. This year, I have one woman who is her senior at Cedar Crest as a nursing student. She left our program last year and is finishing that up. She brought in the other day her report card, and she had 2 Bs and 3 As. I mean, amazing. We have a family that came into the program. They had been in college. She got pregnant. Her boyfriend stayed in school. She ended up needing to, Mom and Dad didn't want her to come back home, so she came into the shelter program. And her boyfriend, then they got married, and she's now completing, when September comes around, she'll be doing her student teaching, and in December graduating from Kutztown with her BS in elementary ed. Her husband is also going to school, but he's also working, so he's only going to school part-time. So this program is great. I mean, I wish I had more apartments for here. The shelter program is a really great program for families in crisis. This is when you're a little bit past that. This is when you've made that decision that I need to commit to an education so that I can do better for myself and my children. It's a tough program. I mean, we don't have the same rules. It's a little bit looser because there's no, we don't have guards at the door. You're paying rent and you're coming and going as you please. So you have a little bit more freedom, but it's tough. I mean, most of the families that are in those programs are going to NAC and L-Tri-C. Most of them don't have cars, so they're riding the bus. And now that L-Tri-C is in Allentown, it's a little bit easier for them, but it is a challenge. But if they
don't have all the classes that you need.
No, they don't have all of them, but it's grown, and so that's a help. All right, so as I get... Yeah, I'm going to wrap her up. So anyway, 2008, this is one of the families. She moved into our program. She got a welding certificate. Welding.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we had a fight with welfare. They wouldn't pay for it because it was a non-traditional. So we ended up paying for the welding program for But it was great. She won a self-sufficiency award, which was really pretty cool. All right, so this was a family which we couldn't get this to. That's what our mission is. Again, it's about empowering and self-sufficiency. It's not about doing things for people. Alan likes to say we don't do anything for anybody. Doesn't mean we sit up with our feet on the desks all day, but we're not about taking you to an appointment, and we're not about getting you a job because if we got it, you're going to lose it. So it's really about you doing it on your own. All right, guiding principles. These are some of the reasons in the Lehigh Valley why families are homeless. That's like poor. Basically, you're a family of two, but $15,000 you're poor. I'd say that number could be a lot. That's not poor. That's extreme poverty. All right, these are the families that we serve. They're really low income. Again, these are the funding sources that we have. We get money from, every level of government. Plus, my budget is about a $650,000 budget, and of that, about $175,000, $200,000 is local contributions. That's what I'm required to raise every year. Yeah, it's a lot of money. We also have a health clinic, not near as nice as what I'm seeing next door, but we have doctors from Lehigh Valley Hospital that come in twice a month, do a free health clinic. It's great. It's for the community. We have a family resource center. That's it. You know what? These are kids just like yours and ours. They play. They do the same things. That's our family resource center, and we have lots of volunteers. If you're interested in doing things, that's our food pantry. With the homeless population in the Lehigh Valley, 32% of them were children. Again, some statistics. Average age of the person living at the shelter is 4 years old, the children. Did I do what? Well, will he let me?
It's my wife's.
Okay. Where am I going back to? Yep, and it is huge. And all this stuff is on our website, too. So we have internet, yes, so you can go there. Okay. I don't think it's a great website, but it's all right. So, again, 50 families on the waiting list. Sometimes it goes up. That's average. So that means there's 100 more kids if you're looking at two kids per family that are homeless. And what are they doing? That's one of the things that people ask me. They're doubled up, or they're living in an apartment with no electricity or no water or bed bugs or things like that. So there's lots of things. It's not that they're on the street. Most of the families that have children are not on the street. They are somewhere else, but they're living in a place that might have been better if they're on the street because they're just not habitable. All right. So I'm facing the wrong way. That's never worked. Okay. We do lots of things. You can volunteer there. You can donate. We do food drives. We just, and again, I think one of the big things is three. My job is to help you understand what it is that we do. And I do. I truly appreciate the fact that you allowed me to come this evening and talk to you a little bit. Though, as you can tell, I could probably talk on and on. Volunteering. We have volunteers that do everything. I see you have an Air Products shirt on. I don't know. Is that?
My wife wears it.
Okay. Air Products, Just Born. We have probably a group from Air Products at our shelter every month. They do all sorts of things. We have that. They do maintenance. They like to be handy. So we'll have them. They repair things. They paint things. We have volunteers that come in that do crafts with the kids. We have volunteers that come in that help with the Family Resource Center. We do parenting classes. So there's a lot of things that we engage volunteers with. So I don't know, confirmation classes that come in. There's a huge amount. We do just a lot. Again, I can give you the information. You can go to our website. You can call the shelter and say, hey, I'm interested in volunteering. Lauren's there. We have somebody whose job is to coordinate all the shelter resources. And resources are volunteers, and their drives and things like that. So that's that. And, look, volunteers have done that man's tutoring. That's the kid who's doing the garden. Who expanded, as you can see, the playground. They've built things for us. They've built that. They do a lot of different things. Air Products, you see those green shirts? Yes, they're here all the time. Home Depot. And again, we have an adopt an apartment program. As you see, that's what the apartment looked like before. A group came in, adopted it. It is a pretty darn nice looking apartment. And they're all like that. We have every apartment at the shelter adopted. So once a year, a group comes in, and so it doesn't look like in between. It gets worn and used, but they just really make the, I sort of equated to taking your kid. If you have a girl, you take her to college, and you've got cement walls when you get there. By the time you leave, it's her bedroom, and that's what these people do. It's just an amazing. Look, they just turn it around and really make it, yeah. And we do a holiday sponsorship so that there's nobody who's at the shelter who doesn't have the best Christmas that they've ever had. And those are all the things that we take. So I don't know, you can have a copy of this if anybody wants to see it. And that's me. So I'm done, I guess. Thank you very much.
So I want to thank Marcia once again for coming here. It was a wonderful information. And with that, let us go to prayer. Great and faithful God, truth seems to be a rare commodity in our world today. Lies, half-truths, and misinformation are defended and justified, while truth-telling in the public arena, as well as in our private lives, is often criticized and frequently punished. Against the backdrop of your word stands as a beacon of truth that is timeless, sure, and trustworthy. We thank you that your word is new each time we read it, that it remains relevant no matter how the world changes, that it is a reliable witness to your ongoing presence and activities in our lives. We thank you. Amen.